You wake up at 3 in the morning and your chest is already tight, already bracing for a world that hasn't even begun yet. The thoughts arrive before you do, spiraling, circling, feeding on each other like wolves in a dark forest with no exit. You replay conversations that already ended, rehearse disasters that haven't happened, and carry the weight of 1,000 imagined failures on a spine that was never meant to hold that much. You smile through meetings. You perform normalcy. But inside, there is a storm that never fully quiets, a low hum of dread that follows you from room to room, from morning to night, from year to wasted year. And the cruelest part? You have started to believe this is just who you are, that the anxiety is you, that the worry is permanent. But hear this clearly, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are not beyond saving. What you are is untrained, unguided, and operating without the tools that have quietly existed for over 2,000 years. This is not a video about temporary relief. This is about rewiring the architecture of how you think, feel, and face this world. Everything changes today. Stoicism was not born in a library. It was forged in fire, on battlefields, in prisons, in the courts of empire, inside the minds of men who had every reason to collapse and chose instead to rise. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful civilization on earth while managing a devastating plague, endless war, and betrayal from those closest to him. And every single morning he sat alone and wrote words of discipline to himself, not to history. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, warned relentlessly that a life spent chasing comfort was a life surrendered to slow death. Epictetus was born into literal slavery, stripped of every external freedom a human being can possess, and yet he became one of the most psychologically liberated minds who ever walked this earth. These were not philosophers of escape. They were architects of endurance. Stoicism does not promise you a life without pain. It promises you something infinitely more powerful, a mind that cannot be shaken by pain. It is a daily practice, a constant discipline, a philosophy that lives not in books, but in the quality of your decisions when everything around you is burning. Now let us begin applying it. Imagine you are standing in the middle of a raging storm. The rain is horizontal. The wind wants to take everything from you. You cannot stop the storm. You cannot negotiate with lightning or reason with thunder. But you can decide how firmly you plant your feet. This is the first and most essential Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control, and it is the blade that cuts anxiety in half. Epictetus taught that some things are within our power and some things are not. And the suffering of most human beings comes from refusing to accept that distinction. Your reputation, other people's opinions, the economy, the diagnosis, the outcome of the meeting, none of it is yours to control. What belongs to you is your judgment, your response, your values, your effort. That is your territory. Everything else is weather. Between the moment something happens to you and the moment you react, there exists a pause, small, almost invisible, but infinite in its importance. In that pause lives your freedom. Marcus Aurelius called it his inner citadel, a fortress built not from stone but from self-mastery, impenetrable not because the world cannot touch you, but because you have decided it cannot rule you. Seneca wrote words that should burn in your chest every single morning. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And more devastatingly, while we wait for life, life passes. You are waiting. You have been waiting for the right moment, the right mood, the right circumstances, the right version of yourself to finally arrive before you begin living with full commitment. But that version is not coming. That moment is not coming. And the hours you spend paralyzed by worry are not paused hours. They are spent hours, gone without return, added to a debt you are accumulating against your own existence. The Stoics practice something called Memento Mori, remember that you will die. Not as a dark obsession, but as the sharpest possible motivator for presence. You are not permanent. The people you love are not permanent. This morning will not return. Procrastination, when you see it honestly, is a form of arrogance. It assumes you have unlimited time, that tomorrow is guaranteed, that you can afford to delay what matters. You cannot afford it. You never could. The life you keep planning to start living is already slipping beneath your feet like sand, and the tide is not waiting. Amor Fati, love your fate. Not tolerate it. Not survive it. Love it with the full force of a will that has decided nothing that happens to it will be wasted. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action, that the obstacle in the path becomes the path itself. This is not motivational decoration. This is a complete reversal of the psychological relationship between you and adversity. Most people treat difficulty as evidence that something has gone wrong. The Stoic treats difficulty as the curriculum. The fire does not destroy the steel. The fire is precisely what makes it steel. Every anxiety you have ever carried, every failure that left a scar, every humiliation that made you want to disappear, none of it was punishment. All of it was construction. You are not a person things happen to. You are a person being shaped by everything that happens. The crisis that feels like it is ending you is actually the moment that will define you, if you choose to meet it with open hands rather than clenched fists. Reframe what you are carrying. It is not a burden. It is the very weight that is building the version of you who no longer needs to be afraid. Modern life has built an elaborate, beautifully decorated trap, and most people are living inside it without ever realizing the bars are made of comfort. Convenience has become a religion. Softness has become a standard. And the result is a generation that crumbles under the first significant pressure because it has never been trained to hold weight. Epictetus understood this deeply. The body must be trained through hardship, or the mind will have no foundation to stand on. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort deliberately and consistently. They would skip meals not out of punishment, but out of preparation. They would sit with cold, with silence, with boredom, with difficulty, because they understood that a person who fears discomfort is a person who can be controlled by anyone willing to offer relief. You must begin training yourself in small acts of chosen difficulty every single day. Wake earlier than you want to. Sit with the silence that makes you reach for your phone. Do the hard task first, before the easy ones soften your resolve. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are depositing into an account of resilience that compounds over time into a will that cannot be broken by circumstance or fear. The Stoics practiced an exercise called the view from above, a deliberate act of cosmic perspective in which you rise, mentally, above your life and observe it from an enormous distance. From up there, your city becomes a dot. Your country becomes a shadow. Your argument, your debt, your fear of what people think of you, from that altitude, it dissolves into something remarkably close to nothing. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly how many emperors had come before him and been utterly forgotten. How vast the span of time was against which any single human life measures almost invisibly. And yet somehow, knowing this made him live more deliberately, not less. Try this, imagine your own funeral. Not morbidly, but honestly. What do you want the people in that room to say about who you were? Not what you owned. Not what your title was. What was the quality of your presence? What was the texture of your character when things were hard? That question, held clearly in your mind today, strips away every trivial anxiety and leaves only what is real. Your legacy is not built at the end of your life. It is built in this moment, and the next, and every quiet choice between fear and courage. Now close this video and do one thing, one small, deliberate, courageous act that your anxiety has been postponing. Make the call. Write the first sentence. Apologize. Begin. Do not wait for readiness, because readiness is a myth that comfort invented to keep you still. If this philosophy has landed in your chest, leave one word in the comments. Write, fortress, so that every person who watches this video knows they are not watching alone. You are not here to survive your life quietly. You are here to meet it, full force, eyes open, completely unafraid. That is the Stoic way. Now go.